know what you're going to say already. Every time I criticize Dan Crenshaw on Twitter, all his little fanboys, all his little Republican GOP statist fanboys were like up in my mentions like, what are you talking about? Dan Crenshaw's a patriot, he's a veteran, he's a Republican, we need to support him. Calm down, sir. I'm going to tell you why Dan Crenshaw is not fighting for liberty and why he is actually helping the statists in the swamp to gain authoritarian control over our nation. Let's go. The first reason why I started to criticize Representative Dan Crenshaw from Texas was because he supports red flag laws. You're taking that out of context. I'll read his tweet. I'll put his tweet right on the screen. So, in response to shootings in El Paso and Dayton last year, Dan Crenshaw had this to say. The solutions aren't obvious, even if we pretend they are, but we must try. Let's start with the TAPS Act. Maybe also implement state red flag laws or a gun violence restraining orders. Stop them before they can hurt someone. So, Dan, my issue with red flag laws, I know you've said, oh, but I support due process. If you cave into the left even a little bit on red flag laws, you're going to see patriots, law-abiding citizens, people who just want to protect their homes. You're going to see all those people have their guns taken away. Is that what you want? Apparently so, because you said you supported red flag laws in the face of all these Democrats hounding on you to say you support red flag laws and gun control, and you gave in. So on Crenshaw's official representative website, we see a page that says, there is a lot of confusion about red flag laws. Let's clear it up. Let's take a look-see at that. Red flag laws are not different from current laws that prohibit those convicted of domestic violence subject to a court order for harassing, stalking, or threatening their partner, adjudicated mentally defective, or dependent on certain drugs from owning guns. Whereas current federal prohibitions are for history, state red flag laws address threats a court has found to be viable. We already have red flag laws. It's not a big deal. I'll tell you why it's a big deal. When we're talking about things like mental disorders or drugs that one can use to have their gun rights taken away, this is very subjective. Are you going to tell a rape victim who may have PTSD, schizophrenia, depression, ADHD, OCD, are you going to tell a rape victim that because they have a mental disorder, they are not allowed to own a weapon to protect themselves in the event that they will be sexually assaulted again? Are you going to tell a war veteran who has mental disorders stemming from being in live combat that they are not allowed to have a weapon because they have a mental disorder? They can't protect themselves. All of these guidelines are very, very arbitrary. Another thing that I find issue with is the drug thing. And you may be wondering, Olivia, how could you possibly have a reason why you would want people who are on drugs to own firearms? Well, let's go over it. As of now, marijuana is not decriminalized and not legalized in all 50 states, meaning that, let's say I had a medical marijuana card. Would I be allowed to own a gun to protect myself? No. And this isn't just something that Crenshaw is proposing himself. This actually is a law that already exists. If the government somehow had record of me smoking weed, ingesting any type of other cannabis product, I would not be allowed to own a weapon and exercise my Second Amendment right. So these red flag laws are just a way at chipping ever so carefully. Oh, you can have a gun, you can't have a gun, but if you're a law-abiding citizen, you can have a gun. Unless, you smoke weed, which is safer than drinking alcohol. Unless you have a mental disorder. Unless. I don't want to hear it. I don't want to hear it, Dan. That was the biggest reason why I saw a lot of people falling off of the Crenshaw train, but we still have so many people, so many Republicans, so many liberty lovers falling under the trap that Mr. Crenshaw actually cares about us and actually wants to preserve our liberty. Let's take a look at yet another reason why he does not.
My question is for Congressman Crenshaw. First of all, I want to thank you for your distinguished service to this country. Congressman, just this year, after a 2017 version of the law was blocked by a federal judge, Texas passed a law that still requires certain contractors to sign a pledge that they will not boycott Israel. The state of Florida has also passed a law outlawing the mere criticism of Israel. Representative Crenshaw, on May 9th of this year, similar legislation was even attempted at the federal level when the House Appropriations Committee sought to amend a routine government funding bill to allow federal agencies to compel contractors to promise not to boycott Israel as a requirement of maintaining their relationship with the U.S. government. Congressman, in spite of our unique and historic alliance, These laws are obvious, flagrant, and troubling violations of the First Amendment and free speech. Given that when you entered office, you swore to protect and defend the Constitution of the United States, my question is this: will you honor your oath and denounce these laws here, now, and forever, or do you agree with Governor DeSantis and Governor Abbott that the First Amendment should only apply to Americans who support Israel?
You're advocating for the First Amendment, or at least you're cloaking yourself in the First Amendment.
I wouldn't presume my intentions. I wouldn't presume my intentions.
Well, I will presume your intentions. I will. Because I know who you guys are. And here's the problem with the BDS movement. When you create a movement,
I'm not advocating for the BDS
and
movement.
divest and sanction the one Jewish state just because they are the one Jewish state, there is a deep problem with that. That is anti-Semitism manifested.
It's your right as an American.
First of all, big props to that guy that had the guts to actually ask that question in a very coherent way that left no room for Crenshaw to really get out of it. And as you can see, I'm a little bit heated at Crenshaw's response because his response was, you're just using the First Amendment to cloak your anti-Semitism, because there would be no other reason for someone to not do business with or to criticize Israel other than the fact that they hate Jewish people. There's no other reason, according to Crenshaw. And the fact that he would dismiss such an important question about the First Amendment by just accusing someone of hating Jewish people for no reason, that is exactly what the left does. So that was just a ridiculous response. I actually wrote an article last year about how our First Amendment rights are being taken away, chipped at very slowly, just to protect Israel. And after I put that article out, it was actually really funny because I never gave my opinion on Israel as a state. I've never said anything negative about Jewish people as a whole. I hold no anti-Semitic beliefs. However, people call me anti-Semite for publishing that article saying that people should be free to boycott Israel. People should be free to criticize Israel, even though I've never said any of my opinions on it. I'm not a Zionist, nor am I an anti-Zionist. I don't care. So that is my opinion on the state of Israel. We should not be giving them billions of dollars a year, though. That needs to change. So you can see my frustration when we have some random guy just asking, do you support these bills that go against the First Amendment? And he's like, you're an anti-Semite! Hold on. I ask you, Representative Crenshaw, where do your loyalties lie? If you're calling an American an anti-Semite, a racist essentially, if you're calling an American a bigot for asking that question, where do your loyalties lie? Do they lie with America or do they lie with Israel? Because it seems like you're protecting them a lot more than you protect us. Lastly, Representative Dan Israel First Crenshaw is a warmonger. Just a few days ago, on November 17th, he had this to say: withdrawing troops rapidly might make some people feel better, but it won't be good for American security. We will be right back in the same place as pre-9/11. No deterrence, no situational awareness, vulnerable to emboldened terrorists. That was 20 years ago. 2 decades. For 2 decades, we have had presence in the Middle East. We should not be in Afghanistan. We should not be in Iraq. So this tweet was very heavily criticized, and one of my Twitter friends, actually, Nikki Johnson, she replied, it's not about feelings. Please tell us what we've accomplished in any regime change war. Yes, Nikki, I would also like to know. Crenshaw responds and is ratioed, not another 9/11. Al-Qaeda denied an uncontested training ground and time-space to plan large-scale attacks. Girls graduating school, no public executions in soccer stadiums, no morality police enforcing Islamic law. Deterrence actually matters. We have a tiny presence. Thank you, Mr. Crenshaw. I'm actually super glad that the Saudis have not committed another 9/11 attack because we invaded 2 unrelated countries. Oh, I'm sorry, this actually wasn't about 9/11 at all, and we have money tied up in foreign oil. Oh, okay, I get it. We have quite literally been at war for 2 decades. We have 18-year-olds over there in the Middle East who were not even alive for 9/11. I'm 19 years old. I was 8 months old when 9/11 happened. I am old enough to pick up a gun and go over there and kill some brown people because of why again? This shit is really ridiculous. And the fact that people like Crenshaw and his supporters are saying, this isn't an act of war, we're just pacifying the region. We're making it so that people aren't executed and people don't have to live under Islamic law. First of all, that has nothing to do with the United States. We need to worry about our security here. And secondly, if, let's say, China had a military base in the United States and just came over here, the people of America want them to leave, but China will not leave. Is that not an act of war, Representative Crenshaw? So again, I am questioning where your loyalties lie. Do your loyalties lie with the oil demigods in the Middle East, or do they lie with the interests of the American people here on U.S. soil? I respect Dan Crenshaw immensely for giving up his vision in one eye, trying to fight for what he thought was right. However, I do not respect him at all for trying to send other young boys out there, 18, 19, 20 years old, to do the same thing for a war that does not need to be fought. I've been criticizing Crenshaw for over a year now. As soon as I saw him linking up with Charlie Kirk and the Turning Point USA people, I was like, yeah, okay, I'll keep an eye on you. And then he started that whole Israel first, I love Bane, endless wars, and red flag laws bullshit. Yeah, I had to pull the plug on the Crenshaw support from my end. So hopefully that clears up to my followers why I frequently criticize him, why I call him a statist or an authoritarian or a warmonger. That doesn't mean I hate all Republicans just because I'm criticizing one Republican. But yeah, that dude needs to get primaried the fuck out of here. So, peace.